This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is. The Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. It's episode 252 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. Make sure you're following Subway to Shea on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86. And you subscribe to the podcast if you want to listen to it audio version wise. That'll be up after the show's over on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But if you want to be a part of the chat, you want to be a part of the conversation, you're doing that right here on YouTube. And you can support the Subway to Shea podcast with super chat, super stickers, and super thanks, which are now available on YouTube itself. Shout out to everyone that's in the chat in the room right now. Maureen in there, Armand as well. Appreciate you for being a part of this show. And this is a good weekend, right? I mean, we've been through some rough times at the New York Mets over the last month and a half, and it's great to see the Mets finish off the month 16-12 with a winning record. All doing that by sweeping a team that has been, I don't know, kind of their Atlanta Braves for a while now in the Miami Marlins. So to get that sweep back after what happened last week is pretty good to see. And on top of that, you know, I'm wearing the Knicks jersey today because we're getting ready for the NBA Finals. We're going to talk a little bit of that, as well as I got my friend and good guest of the show here, Andrew Claudio, on Subway to Shea today. Andrew, this is the first time you've been on, I think, since we previewed the 2024 the National League Championship Series.
A lot's changed since then.
Oh, yes.
It seems. Yeah. Anthony, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about blue and orange teams here in the Big Apple that at least had a good weekend. We'll go with that.
A very good weekend. We'll get into the Knicks a little later on in the show, but you know, Andrew, you're a man of many talents. You're on with Just Mets as a co-host with Rich McLeod. I mean, you're doing Mets therapy as well, and I cannot forget to mention the Great Knicks Film School, which is a great channel. Make sure you're following that on YouTube for all of your Knicks content. So you're really busy, man.
I'll say, yeah, the first time I've been this busy in June, which is obviously a welcome amount of busyness. Yeah, the thumbnail that you had up earlier for the start, it had the monogram of all the different logos. It set in how busy I am for sure. So I you know, it's a fun time to be a fan of the Mets and obviously the Knicks at the moment. As far as I should say, it's a fun time to be a fan of the Mets this weekend.
Yes,
like, it's been a fun time this weekend at Citi Field for sure.
Well, let's get right into it because the Mets finished off a sweep of the Miami Marlins, and in convincing fashion. They scored some runs, man. We haven't been able to score runs. They scored runs. They scored 6 or more runs in all 3 games to finish off the homestand 4-2, because it didn't start off well with the 2 losses to Cincinnati to start the week. They're 26-33 right now, 7 games. In 4th place, 5.5 games back of the wild card. What are your thoughts on this sweep? I always like to say, and I said it in the chat, I'm very a cautious optimist. You know, I'm happy that the Mets swept, but you know, let's get to 500.
That took the words right out of my mouth. The actual optimism and any thought to the rest of the season mattering, or this not being a deadline where you're going to see them tear everything that isn't bolted to the floor down. That only happen if they get to 500 by July 1st. They just had a successful May going 16-12. If it was like a little bit better, if you had 2 better road trips, then we could have started to talk about, you know, you're within range of 500. You've got better players coming back and getting healthy pretty soon. Last weekend in Miami being what it was, kind of took the sails, at least out of my optimism. You know, you lose those 3 and then you turn it into a 5-game losing streak to get back to exactly where you were at the end of April. It was just a reminder of just how flawed this team has become and this team was just to start the season. So as far as this weekend is concerned, I've narrowed it down to 3 main components. One, Like, it was just good to see your team play good baseball. And we just haven't had a lot of that as Mets fans. Two, it was good to see them play good baseball in front of a packed house. Like, shout out to Mets fans. Every highlight I saw of Citi Field this weekend, even Friday night after like one win, just the stadium was packed out, and the Melendez home run was in front of a crowd. People were there for Bobby Valentine and Lee Mazzilli. And my goodness, the wide shot of the Soto grand slam and seeing not an empty seat in the building on a Sunday for a team that was, 11 games under 500 as recently as Tuesday. Shout out to Mets fans for showing up this weekend, and shout out to the team for showing up. And then you said it. I'm sick of the Marlins. Like, it was good to hand down some payback and for them to show a pulse. And it seemed as if it was personal, that they wanted to avenge the showing they had last weekend, at least scoring 2 runs in 3 games. Well, how's 25 runs in 26 innings that they gave us this weekend? So it was on those 3 levels, just in this vacuum of this weekend. Just a fun weekend of Mets baseball. We'll see if they can continue it and get closer to 500 before we start thinking anything more optimistic.
Game 1 felt like a game against like the 99 Braves where the Mets had the lead and then they keep inching back and eventually, tied the game. Thankfully, the Mets, ended up winning that one. The last 2 games a little bit easier to deal with. Shout out to Bobby Valentine, was probably my favorite Mets manager in my time watching Mets baseball, and then as well as Lee Mazzilli, who got inducted into the Hall of Fame. It's nice to see the Mets actually win on one of these days, because they didn't do it for David Wright. They didn't do it for Darryl Strawberry, and the list goes on and on of the struggles they've had in those big type of games. But I think you mentioned it with the packed crowd, Juan Soto hitting that grand slam and just the reaction. But Juan Soto's been on a heater, man. Last 15 games, this is his slash line: 382, 469, 873, 9 homers, 18 RBIs, 9 walks, and 4 stolen bases. For this season, 305 batting average, 13 homers, 29 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, and a 994 OPS. I think it's safe to say that this guy's going to make the All-Star game this year, right? Like, he's not going to get screwed over like he did last season.
I think because, and this is really the sneaky part about the All-Star game, is they really only pay attention to April and May. Like, if you get off to a good start and then have a terrible June, you'll make the All-Star team, because we just remember where you were on June 1st, which is why when Soto limps into June after 2, for him, disappointing months. What's up, Rich? Juan Soto then has one of the best months in Mets history, and yet still doesn't make the All-Star team. It's funny. I made this exact point on Just Mets this evening. The generational hitter that we've been lucky enough to watch, that we didn't really get to see the first 2 months of last year. And because the last 4 months were largely miserable, we really didn't get to enjoy like a 43 home run, 900 OPS season last year. And this year, because there's been so little things to enjoy, oh my goodness, am I enjoying this Juan Soto stretch that he's in. Anthony, he missed a month and he's already top 20 in F4. He is still able to accrue F4 to the point right now where he's only played 40 games. And I guess this weekend it put him up to 43. The only other player less than 50 games that's in the top 20 in F4 is, I believe, the catcher for the Braves that's having a good start. And he's at like 46 games because there are mandated games off. So that's just how good he's been so far this season. And, a lot of comparisons have been made to the 2024 Mets, to anybody that is more of an optimist than us. And people point to Grimace and to they called up a pop singer sometime in June, right? The reason that team turned around is because Francisco Lindor turned into an MVP candidate. If this season actually is going to turn around, it's because Juan Soto became an MVP candidate and carried this team back to relevance.
So we're not going to give any credit to Danhausen, who has been Danhausen, who has been paid by a couple of Met fans to try to uncurse this Mets team. He's already got his shirts for the New York Knicks at the NBA store already. So,
well, did he do it? Is my question. Has he uncursed the Mets yet?
I know a couple fans paid money for him to do it, and they did. I think they did like a cameo, and he did one of the videos like he did for the Knicks. So let's see if this turns things around here.
I will say the Jose Alvarado thing, so he was in the building at Citi Field on Wednesday, and the Mets have not lost since. There's also like this very weird thing that because the Knicks keep sweeping teams and then get a whole week off, the week off between the Sixers series and the Cavs series, the Mets went 6-1. Then the 4 games of the Cavs series happens, and that's the losing streak you just saw. The Knicks sweep the Cavs. They go to the NBA Finals. They've been off for the last 8 days. Notice something happened with the Mets while the Knicks have been off. So at the very least, maybe Danhausen has more powers than I recognize, and it can cover 2 teams. Get your wins in now, New York Mets, because by Wednesday, I want all this magic going back toward the other team in orange and blue.
If somehow he turns this season around for the Mets and the Knicks win the championship, I mean, like he's at the Canyon of Heroes, right? Like, I mean, he's got to be, right?
His own float, his own float. I will drive said float if need be, if that happened, because that will be a double parade, I'm assuming, because he will have helped the Mets and the Knicks reach nirvana, you know?
Shout out to my guy CP in the chat saying, let's go Knicks, let's go Mets, need more Winhausens. Good comment here by Maureen in the chat, and this is talking about Juan Soto and how he's taken, Carson Bench and AJ Ewing under his wing. I think that he last season, he was pretty much a guy that was just trying to get used to his surroundings and being a part of this team. After coming off of the 2024 season, the Mets had a lot of hype, and he came in and it was more of a quiet type of player. And now it feels like he's taken a bigger step at being a leader on this team. Not saying that he never was, but it just feels different with Juan Soto and the guys out there in the outfield.
So that's that last part, literally the last part that you said, I think is important, because when he signs with the Mets, that's Brandon Nimmo's outfield. Like, that is very much, he's the mainstay. He's the lifelong Met. He's the homegrown Met. And I never really bought into the clubhouse stuff. Losing teams all have turmoil. I don't think it's because of the turmoil that you lose. I think it's because you lose that there's turmoil. So when you tear it down the way David Stearns did, there's a different conversation about what the team has been since then, but it now becomes Juan Soto's team. And it's even more of a pivot when you put 2 rookies out there with him. And like an underrated aspect of the bromance that you see out there in center in the outfield right now between him and Ewing and Benj, like Juan Soto's 4-5 years older than both of them. They're actually very close in age.
They are.
That it works out that this could be a big brother, little brother situation. Like, I don't know how you've felt about this. I'm tired of talking about the Lindor Soto dynamic. Lindor is in his mid-30s with 3 kids, and he's married. Like, Juan Soto's the richest player in baseball. They have nothing in common. I don't need my 27-year-old superstar and my happily married, like quiet fashion icon to get along. Or to be best friends. I just need them to get along and perform for the baseball team.
Yeah.
Juan Soto being in his 20s and helping our rookies in their 20s, playing the same position, both lefties, like there actually is some synergy there that he can start to take them under his wing and be the big brother that's necessary. So I'm enjoying it. Again, we're trying to find things to enjoy this season, and this weekend we certainly enjoyed that part.
That, and also I want to get into some of the solid outings from the kids in the pitching rotation. Let's start off with Christian Scott, first career win. I was shocked, honestly, to think that this was his first career win, but you forget that he was out all of last season with Tommy John surgery. He didn't get a victory in his first couple of outings in 2024, and then he comes back and he's trying to build himself up to getting to 5 innings. He gets 5 innings here, gives up 5 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. Christian Scott vying for a very important role in this rotation, which is in flux. So if we can have him at his young age, with how hard it is to really sign a really good starting pitcher, because we've seen it with David Stearns, he is not going to give up, a lot of capital to bring in a starting pitcher, no matter really how good he is, except for it was Yamamoto, because of his age, was 25 years old, and he was willing to go the distance with that one. But with these other guys, you have to wonder a little bit, and we're seeing it, and we'll get into him shortly. But Freddie Peralta, offering him the contract that he wants with the results that we've seen, who knows? But Christian Scott's been looking good so far.
Yeah, it's almost, as you just said, like it's important that he looks good because of the philosophy that the president of baseball operations holds. But I agree, Maureen. I'm very impressed with Christian Scott. I think the Colorado start that he made in Colorado, where he didn't get the win, I don't think he even finished 5, but he had a solid first 4 innings, and you could tell there was a swagger about him, and you could see him getting more and more comfortable. And really, since then, he's carried that over to this weekend, where he gets his first win. Look, obviously, there's a 5 inning and out frustration right now with the fan base in this rotation. I would so I've been making this point on Just Mets. I actually think this is like a decent bullpen. So
Yeah.
I think the fact that the bullpen, it's been asked to do a lot. It's the third most innings for the bullpen in the sport. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they keep using openers. So like the bulk guys, David Peterson as a bulk guy, Jonah Tong as a bulk guy, Sean Manaea as a bulk guy. They keep lowering the ERA because they keep getting zeros in the middle innings. Last year, we barely could get starters to go 4, let alone 3, and be productive and give your team a chance to win. I'm finding myself grateful at the 5 inning starts, that he's able to give us 5 innings, 1 run. And you never know over the course of the season, as he's, his first return to action since the injury, if that leash gets a little longer. But you're right. The fact that that the person making the decisions is not interested in signing pitchers to long-term deals means it's even more important that some of these young guys hit. And, you've really seen that lately from Christian Scott.
Shout out to Armand is amazing in the chat here. It always comes with the stats for me on the show. From May 2nd to now, 5 games started, 24 innings pitched, 2.63 ERA, a 4.08 ERA plus, and then a 2.30 FIP there. Yeah, he's been very good. The strikeouts are starting to climb there for him. Look, last season, we were in the 3 inning to 4 inning range with starting pitchers. Now we're getting into the 5th. Progress, folks. We're getting there. Maybe next season or whenever we come back for baseball, if there's a lockout, maybe there will be, we'll get to 6 innings here. But I don't know if this is going to be a new wave of things with baseball and pitching staffs where you're going to see a lot less starting pitchers unless you're really good. And then more of these bulk type guys that you mentioned. And now we could throw David Peterson. I wasn't sure if you mentioned David Peterson, but we could throw David Peterson in there as well as him coming out of the bullpen because, I don't know, to me, I think he's better out of the bullpen. He proved that in the postseason in 2024. He's proven it mostly every time that he's been thrown into the bullpen. I think we leave him in there. We'll see what Sean Manaea can do if he can get back his mojo from 2024. And as you mentioned, Jonah Tong and the rest of the guys that are filling in for the Mets has been really good. Nolan McLean, on the other hand, 5 innings pitched, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 5 walks, 2 strikeouts. The walks are starting to get high. He's giving up home runs. We're starting to see him come back down to earth, but this was a very encouraging outing, and they scored for him. He was not DeGrom to this season. I mean, this game.
Yeah. I'm sure I speak for you and every Mets fan that the expectations that Nolan McLean kind of set for himself with how good he was last year almost makes you forget he's still a rookie, like still in the first 20 starts of his career, and was due to have some struggles, to have some down periods. This is a guy that wasn't that highly touted a prospect until the middle of last year too. So look, while I've given up on him like being in the All-Star conversation, I think the fact that he was able to get through a productive 5 innings to get a W today, I thought was just good for his confidence. And look, the swing and miss stuff is still there. The accuracy issues have suddenly showed up. The Memorial Day start was very troubling, but this is what a rookie is supposed to look like, especially a promising rookie, that it's a guy that you see the stuff and honestly, if it was reversed, like if he had these starts last year and then looked like last year's Nolan McLean now, then it would be completely different vibes. But because it happened the way that it did, that he looked like the second coming of DeGrom last year and now has looked like post-injury Matt Harvey over the past couple starts, it's made it a bit disappointing. But it was good to see him get a win today. That's for sure.
I was saying, let him get out the kinks now. If this season's going to go haywire to begin with, let him get out the kinks now. All these youngsters that come up in the major leagues go through, spurts like this. And if it happens now, fine. And then we'll get Nolan McLean back on. Another pitcher I mentioned, Freddie Peralta versus the Marlins, 4 2/3 innings pitched. So he didn't get the 5 innings on Friday. 7 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts. This season, he's 3-4. With a 3.54 ERA. What would you do with Freddie Peralta? Are you, depending, I guess, to where the Mets are as we get to the trade deadline, is Freddie Peralta someone you hold on to through the end of the season, no matter the fact that you gave up Brandon Sproat and Jet Williams, or are you trading Peralta at the deadline no matter what?
I mean, you'd have to really turn things around for me not to trade Freddie Peralta. Like, if they're in contention, then, well, I'll say this: if they're in contention at the deadline, something will have gone right. Like, maybe he becomes like 6 or 7 inning Freddie instead of 5 frame Freddie. Shout out to Rich McLeod for that nickname. The reality, and I did some digging because the start where he went, like you said, 4 2/3, like really bugged me too, and I think a lot of these 5 inning starts, it is just clockwork. He's entering the 5th inning with 80 pitches every time. And I wanted to know, like, was this just always him? And you go back to last season, the guy made 33 starts and only got to 176 innings pitched. You know how many outs he got in the 7th inning or later last year, Anthony? How many do you think?
I'm going to say maybe 4 to 5 starts.
So 4 to 5 outs. He literally had 4 to 5 outs in the 7th or 8th inning last year. He went into the 7th inning a grand total of twice last season. He went 8 innings in April, or one of his early starts in the year, and then sometime in August he went 6 2/3. Wouldn't shock me if it was against the Mets. This is just who he's always been. Like, he is a 5 to 6 inning pitcher, and again, last year we would have signed up for a 5 to 6 inning pitcher. When you trade 2 of your top 4 prospects for an ace, you're expecting like DeGrom, you're expecting Scherzer, you're expecting a guy that you give him the ball. Okay, bullpen's got the day off.
Yeah.
The next 7 innings are on cruise control. And that's clearly not who he is. So while I appreciate the floor, it's almost like, and I'll tie the Knicks back into this, during the season, I just flatly had to recalibrate how I evaluate Mikal Bridges and stop thinking of what the Knicks gave up for him and just evaluate him for the player that he is, right? Like, he is a role player. He is one of the best in the league when he's going right, but he is a role player. Little did I know he would become worth every pick and more in the postseason, but during the regular season, there was a recalibration I had to make. And I've started to do that with Freddie Peralta, that they did trade 2 highly touted prospects. What's going on with Brandon Sproat now, as like sad and concerning as it is, his start to his major league career in Milwaukee, just Google his ERA if you need to, might actually make it that maybe David Stearns knew what the evaluation might be, and it might be a little too high, that he could like take a 1-year flyer on a cheap contract in Freddie Peralta, knowing what these prospects may be. But yeah, I'm all that to say, I'm very much in the camp of, if they're in contention, just keep them and see if you can make a run. If they're not, you absolutely have to trade him. You can get something for a guy with his remaining salary and for 1 year on a rental. You can absolutely get something for that.
I think the fact that Milwaukee was willing to trade him for only 2 prospects and throw in Tobias Myers on top of that, I think that says a lot about, what they thought about Freddie Peralta. They have not always been a team that re-signs their starting pitchers. We saw it with Corbin Burns. They let him go. So, I hope he kind of turns it around. It would be twofold. It would be good for him because it's good for him in the offseason to sign a contract, but then it'd be good for the Mets if they do decide to trade him. So we'll see what happens with Freddie Peralta. Shout out to the chat in here. We got 178 people in the room right now. Ethang saying, if you're in contention, of course you keep him around unless an arm who is better than him is available. Armand is amazing saying, if they are sellers, trade Peralta. He will get a good return. Pitching is premium, and the cost is premium as well. And there was one comment that I wanted to go back to. Ethang saying, this is a huge test this week. Can the Mets offense continue, especially against the kinds of pitchers the Mariners will deploy? Because we've seen the Mets against some of these teams that really don't have pitching, but turn their pitchers into the 1990. I'll bring them back up. The 1999 Braves, where Tom Glavine and Greg Maddux are steamrolling us.
Yeah, I can tell we're close in age, Anthony, because all of our references are the late 90s, early 2000s. Like
wait until we get into the NBA
Knicks,
finals.
Yeah, trust me, it'll be the same. But like every time I bring up a great rotation, or anytime I'm comparing a great lefty, I'm like Randy Johnson. Anytime I'm comparing a great righty, it's like Pedro. So I believe Rich and I were talking about something, and there was like a 110 hopper up the middle that got through for a base hit, and I was like, yeah, Louis Soho style hit, and like that's only relevant to somebody who was 12 or whatever years old in 2000, right? Mariners have won 5 in a row. The American League as a whole is kind of mid, so I have no idea what to evaluate as far as like the Mets are facing a first place team in Seattle. The travel has just been ridiculous on this team. Like the one road trip that they didn't have to travel for was when I say didn't have to travel, didn't have to leave the time zone for, was the one they were just on, the disappointing one that ended in Miami during a 16 game and 16 day stretch. Right. And I look at the West Coast trips that they've taken, and they've all just been brutal. And the fact that they've already taken 4 trips outside of the time zone, and you got a lot of young guys on this team, just makes it really tough. So I'm in agreement with this is a test, and I really think it's a June thing. Like I said this on Just Mets, I think a week ago. June is the most important month, in my opinion, of a baseball calendar, because like really Memorial Day is the first checkpoint that you go to find out. Like that's when you look at standings, and that's when you look at how guys are performing. You've got a 2-month data sample. Then you get a month to determine the direction your team is going, the direction your season is going. If at the end you're within playoff range, then you start to evaluate what you need to add to your team. If at the end of June you realize this isn't our year, then you start to evaluate who you're going to get rid of, right? Are you sellers and who are you selling off? So yeah, I'll extend the important week into the important month. You got to get back to 500 by the end of June if these last 3 months are going to matter, or you're going to be one of the sellers at the deadline for the second time in 4 years with the payroll that you have. So we'll see what happens.
The problem is that because they expanded the playoffs, teams are in contention way past the trade deadline. So we've not seen as much movement as we used to see when it comes to a lot of these teams. And if the Mets are, let's go 4 to 5 games under 500, but then maybe they're, 2.5 games behind the wild card, they might be more inclined to buy.
Yeah.
And try to take a shot here, because I'm pretty sure Steve Cohen won't be happy if this team, sells at the deadline, with all of the, thoughts coming in as that this team was finally going to make the step to being a playoff team after, all the reconstruction that David Stearns has done. So we'll see how it turns out for the Mets. I think one thing I don't like the way I thought I was going to like the Mets and all the Major League Baseball teams playing each other. I thought I was going to like that, the whole scenario, because I was tired of playing the Braves 19 times and the Marlins 19 times. But because of now you have to play all these teams, the travel has been crazy. I mean, remember that August of 2024, the Mets were on the West Coast. They had to make up a game in St. Louis. They had to go to Colorado. They had to go back. It was a mess, and that's why they struggled to that point. So I don't know if that's something that when they do the CBA again is something that might change, but we'll see. This topic that I want to get into with you is a little when to celebrate and when not to celebrate here. And over this past couple of weeks, the Mets had brought in the whole hard hat with the home run and all that stuff. And I kind of thought about this because, I watched the Knicks at the end of the Eastern Conference Final, and, Jalen Brunson as his normal self, not satisfied, has everybody trying to be as calm as possible. They're not overly celebrating winning the Eastern Conference because they know the job's not done. And then I go watch the Mets, and this was when they were struggling the last couple of weeks where, down 7-0, down 6-0. I mean, they're celebrating with the hard hat home runs and stuff like that. Like today, you hit the grand slam, put the thing on. I'm not going to be one of those like fans that are going to be like, you can't celebrate at all. But like, I guess like know when to do it, because it just feels like off celebrating down 6-2, 7-2, and the team has just been struggling. I mean, just look at the difference between, I know it's different sports, but the Knicks are a totally different team. It took them a while to get back to this point in time, and it's just different feeling. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about them doing stuff like this, and the team has just, outside of now winning these 4 in a row, I feel like there's really been no accountability on these players, especially, you saw with David Peterson not covering home. You go back to Vientos earlier in the season, running past third base, and then him doubling down on the post-game press conference that he would do it again. Like, I don't know. It just feels like a team that, even though they win 4 in a row, something like that can derail them again.
Well, so I'll start here. Like, apparently it didn't derail them, because I think the exact situation where I also thought it was a little ridiculous, the hard hat and vest happening after like the Simeon home run to make it 6-1, the Soto home run to make it 6-2. Yeah, it looks a little ridiculous. In the vacuum, though, like we're talking 2 games in the middle of May, or I guess at the end of May, in the middle of a very frustrating season. I at least have some grace that that this team is just looking for reasons not to completely be defeated and to completely fall apart. And look, like they won 4 games after both of those moments. So for all we know, keeping the morale, even if it was like 1% up, like it was able to keep it off the ground. Whereas the Knicks doing what they're doing is, if like the Mets got to the NLCS and didn't celebrate winning the National League, right? Because they recognize the main goal is like 2 completely different tiers of where both franchises are, right? The spirit of what you're saying, in that the accountability in the locker room, in the front office, and the overall like direction of the team and the infrastructure going on, like even the tone deaf fireworks in the middle of a game that you're getting your teeth kicked in, like, yeah, that's I think more what the frustration has been, that the fan base feels one thing, sees one thing, and is being told another by the front office. Like, it's almost like you don't see what we're seeing, and it's like, yeah, well, we don't see what you're seeing either. Like, wait a minute, so this really bad baseball team in your mind is really good, and we can still do all the in-game hijinks, and like shout out to Steve and to Alex, who have completely turned the Citi Field experience around outside of the on-field play, although I love watching Juan Soto, so I won't complain too much. I think that's more where I agree with you, is like the tone deaf nature in which some, like having the voice of SpongeBob read the starting lineup during the middle of a losing streak. Just, you make a phone call and say, hey, morale's down. We're going to, I don't know if the fans are going to schedule. Right. Like, I don't know if the fans are going to like hearing from Patrick, right now. I think we're going to do this a different time, but like, we'll still cover your retainer and have you come back in a month or something, so that's more my issue,
Yeah. Because I was listening to, I think it was Michael Kay the other day was talking about, the teams in baseball, how after every, in the postseason, after every round, they're celebrating. And as you see, like with the Knicks here, like it was as business as usual. They still know they're not done yet, and they have finished the goal in winning a championship. So does that at all in the postseason? I never thought that would bother me, because I remember in 2022 when they didn't celebrate, getting into the postseason, and then it just went awry from there. And in 2024, they did all the celebrations and stuff, and everything was good. So like that didn't really bother me as much, but I kind of get what he's saying there.
I think the difference in 2022 is that the Mets like were playing from ahead from a division lead that celebrating making the playoffs was a formality. And the actual thing they were trying to accomplish was win a division, which, look, I actually think the hardest thing to do in the sport these days is win a division, like win a close division race. I'm not calling the playoffs a crapshoot. Like, you do have to perform in the playoffs, but it's harder to win 100 games than it is to win 11 in October, right? It's just two different sports, man. Like, 16 teams make the playoffs in the NBA. If you're like basically competent, you make the playoffs. The Knicks are at a point where they've celebrated making the playoffs before. Like, you remember the 2021 Knicks season, the Julius Randle, Tibbs 4 seed during the post-pandemic. My goodness, did we celebrate that 4 seed, right? Now the 4 seed would be a disappointing season. They've got a 3 seed, and a lot of Knicks fans were disappointed in how the regular season went. It's just a change in expectations. And thankfully, this team has come into this season, the Knicks, that is, have come into this season with a goal that, like, we've experienced making the playoffs, we've experienced making the second round, we've experienced the joy of making the third round. There's one goal left. And it's why I agree with you. The business-like aspect of their sedated celebration when they won the conference gave me a lot of confidence going into the finals. So we'll see if they can. I don't know if we're pivoting into the Mets to Knicks talk now, but if they are able to get the job done and to complete the goal that they clearly have set for themselves.
We're going to get into them. One more thing I want to talk to you because it happened this week. The CBA proposals.
Oh, yeah.
The initial CBA proposals. We all know CBA expires on December 1st. MLB proposed a salary cap system with a hard cap of $245.3 million. And finally, a hard floor came out with the $171.2 million, 50-50 revenue split and the centralization of all television revenue. Now, the Players Association proposed a little bit something different, and more of a soft floor, new definitions of revenue sharing, and a pay increase for younger players, which I think should definitely happen. But what do you think about what we've heard over this past week here? I still think we're kind of destined for some sort of lockout, at least to start the season, and then we'll see if they can come together, because this is the first time them coming together with, a little bit of talk here. Initially, I think it was Rob Manfred who went to players and kind of was throwing this at them. They're like, Bryce Harper's like, get out of here. don't even bother with this type of stuff. So what are your thoughts on what we've heard this week on these CBA proposals?
Yeah, Rich and I had a really good conversation about this on Just Mets tonight. And I wonder if you had the same reaction as us, because it was the initial reaction when we saw the proposal was like, oh, there's no baseball in 2027. Like, they're not having a season next season. They're so far apart in what both sides want that there's I just don't see how any of this gets negotiated closer in season and then in the winter. And, Rich made the good point that how crippling the 1994 strike was. You have a lot of momentum with baseball right now, and you don't want to just have the sport disappear for a year. And like, I agree with that. And I really hope they figure something out. I almost wonder, Anthony, if because this has just been the conversation around the sport for the last 2-3 years, since 2022, when there was a small lockout for a couple of weeks, right? If the preparation for both the fan base and for the union on both sides was like, hey, be prepared for a long off season, like sign your deals so that way you're set for the other side of 2026, because like we're going into like a stalemate most likely. And I almost wonder if they've built in an expectation of that negotiation taking all of the 2027 season away. So they're just so far apart. And look, the other part of it is like, there's 9 teams that this would affect that are over the salary cap.
Yeah.
There's 11 teams, 12 teams, I believe, actually, that are under the salary floor. So it's a tad disingenuous to hear these owners say the big boys are spending too much. And then you have 12 teams that are, oh, yeah, but we can spend $171 million. We just don't. at the moment. But if you make us, we will. But you got to make sure those guys don't spend. And it comes off as very disingenuous, right? And so it's going to 100% take a while for that to get sorted out. And then there's like what you said about the minor league, the younger players getting paid, getting to free agency sooner, the TV money being in a universal pool, so there's no blackouts, right? Which is just like a direct shot at what the Dodgers have built with their TV contract. Like those are things that you could negotiate in good faith in a small like month of conversations. But then you add in how far away they are in a salary cap and a salary floor. It sounds like a lot that they're going to have to overcome.
With the money that these players are making, you look at Juan Soto and Aaron Judge and all the top players in the league. I can't see them accepting any type of salary cap at all. Like, I feel like that's not even a conversation on the table. Now, the salary floor, I think all fans can agree there definitely needs to be some type of salary floor for these owners to start paying. I mean, the Mets paying Juan Soto, $50 million, and then a team having about a $50 million payroll, that just doesn't work in baseball. And these are rich owners. So, pay up for some of these players.
Yeah. The Marlins that we saw this weekend have an $81 million payroll. I believe Soto's tax salary this year is $60 million. So
it's crazy.
Where it's one player versus one team. And apparently the owners proposed that the Marlins spend $90 million more dollars. So why don't they? Like, if that's what you're willing to propose, why don't you spend that money in season? Looking at you, Cleveland, looking at you, Tampa, like all of these teams that have cried poor for years. If your ownership is now saying, we'll agree to pay more if they pay less, how about you start by paying more? And then we can address any potential issues that come from bidding wars that you may potentially lose. Right now, you're not even entering them. So that's where I'm at.
And it's like, what are these guys doing with the money that they're getting that the Mets are over the luxury tax, or the Yankees, what are they doing with that money?
Especially if you're telling me that like the Yes Network revenue and the SNY revenue is also just going to go into one big pool, then it's even more ridiculous that like you're going to also get the revenue from that, but then not spend money. So yeah, they have a lot to work on that I've mentally prepared myself that it's one of those things like where you ask for something for Christmas as a kid, but you understand you asked for something way too expensive, so you're probably not going to get it. I've checked this off the Christmas list for 2027, baseball in 2027. So I will just be happily surprised if there's a season like, oh, baseball. I didn't think I was going to get baseball this year. Great.
Honestly, when we were on that 12-game losing streak and then this other losing streak started, I was like, man, maybe I could use a little bit of a break from baseball for the New York Mets. But
the 12-game losing streak took us all to some dark places, man. Yeah. I didn't know if I was rooting for the lockout. It's like, you know what? I'm not really enjoying baseball, just kind of watching it at the moment.
Mets therapy came in big time for that.
Got that right. For all of us, including the people hosting it, believe me.
G Money Stacks in the comments saying the lockout next year is going to hurt the baseball players. This is created by a snake named Rob Manfred. So a lot of people are not going to agree with the owners. There are some people who do. Some people think players are getting way too much money than they should be getting right now. But that's just, I guess, the name of the game with baseball, because there's never been a salary cap like the other sports. You're getting some of these exorbitant contracts out there.
If you think the players are getting so much money, just wait until you hear what the owners are getting.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my response to that.
As we wrap up this show, we can't go without talking about the New York Knicks against the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA Finals. That starts this Wednesday, June 3rd, 8:30 p.m. First thing I think about, rematch of 1999, the last time the New York Knicks were in the NBA Finals. Didn't go the Knicks' way, but, being the 8th seed to get all the way to the NBA Finals, and they did play hard. They played San Antonio hard in that series. It just wasn't going to be. And I think a lot of Knicks fans could agree, without Patrick Ewing being a part of that group, that it was going to be a tough task to take on the San Antonio Spurs back then, who were getting set to be on a run of 5 championships that they won. Obviously, the Knicks have not won since 1973. And the last Spurs championship was in 2014. What are some of your memories from that run that the Knicks made in 99? I know right off the top of my head, LJ 4-point play. I mean, you can't think about anything else about that without thinking about that play itself.
Yeah, the moments for sure. The Allen Houston running jumper to eliminate the Miami Heat.
Yes.
I point to that moment as my origin story. That's the point I became a Knicks fan. My first year watching basketball was 1997 after Space Jam came out, and a guy named Michael Jordan helped save my favorite cartoon characters from a lifetime of slavery. And
Patrick Ewing.
Well, so he
got
saved
his
Patrick
mojo
Ewing.
back.
That's right. He got his mojo back. And then I realized these people were real, and started watching the NBA that season. And I was like a Michael Jordan fan, but like I was like, oh, the local team is good too. Great. And then they lose the 9-man 1 mission series against the Heat in 97. And then Ewing breaks his wrist in 98. And they still upset the Heat and then lose to the Pacers in 5. Then Michael Jordan retires, and I'm looking for a team to follow. And speaking of lockouts, they gave us a 50-game season. And then the 99 playoffs happens. And like seeing Allen Houston make his shot, then they sweep the Atlanta Hawks, then the LJ 4-point play. And like I rewatched a lot of the fourth quarter of Game 6 against the Pacers. The day that because it was Memorial Day, so I had some time, like the day that they clinched against the Cavs, right? Rewatched the last time they clinched the trip to the finals, and just trying to relive that feeling. Like the first time I was a Knicks fan, they went to the finals and they never went back. And to think that was 27 years ago, it's surreal feeling that that they're back and that they did it in this fashion, like not as an underdog, not as a like sneak by. Like a lot of these playoff games under Tibbs were like close and, rip your heart out or like rip your hair out and then eventually win. And this has just been the most dominant playoff stretch of Knicks basketball, really any basketball that I've ever seen. So, yeah, the combination of 99 being the origin of my Knicks fandom into now feeling, that the wait was worth it 27 years later has been pretty awesome, man.
I'll never forget Patrick Ewing in the post game of that Game 6 going, we're going back to the big show, going back to the big dance.
Mm-hmm.
He's, in his suit. He can't play because he has the injury, and it sucked to not have him be a part of that finals there. But, I was covering the Knicks during that run with Carmelo and Tyson Chandler, and I thought that team was going to be the one to, finally get the Knicks over the hump here. It wasn't meant to be, and now we go all the way to 2026 with Jalen Brunson and Cat, and it's great to see this team. And the Knicks are a story for any sports team. When you make it to the finals, and that's why I think it's so important that Brunson and the team is in a, we're not finished mode yet, because you don't know when you're going to make it back. And the Knicks, for everything that has happened since that 99 finals, everything, the trials and tribulations that team's been through. I mean, you could talk about Stephon Marbury and Isaiah Thomas and Jeremy Lin, all the things, even some of the dark ages after Melo left. You talk about all that stuff, and, here they are 4 games away from winning a championship. So it's never easy for any sports team, but once you're there, you want to get that job done. I've
enjoyed the mantra of 4 more that has been echoing out of the Knicks locker room since they got there. And we've begun all of our finals previews over at Knicks Film School. I believe right now X's and O's is going on. So, you tell me, Anthony, how are you feeling about the series?
I feel very good. I have the Knicks in 6. I'd like to see it done at home. Give Wemby and the Spurs a couple of games here. But you look at this team and what they've been able to accomplish. Let's be fair, right? I mean, this season has been a roller coaster for the New York Knicks throughout the entire regular season. And then it went to Game 4 of the series against the Atlanta Hawks, and then the Knicks went on the 11-game run, which is historic not only for Knicks but just NBA history. What is it, the third longest postseason winning streak? You have the 99 Spurs at 12 in a row, and then you have the Warriors at 15 in a row. So to see what this team has been able to accomplish, what for you, what changed from Game 4 on against the Hawks that we did not see throughout the entire season?
Well, so I'm going to push back a little on the roller coaster. I will say the lows were very low from this team. That 2-9 stretch was low. Losing to Detroit was pretty low. They had a 4-game losing streak in March, or a stretch where they didn't beat teams over 500. This team was first in defense and top 4 in offense from Martin Luther King Jr. Day until the end of the season. And like on New Year's Eve, they were 23-10 with an NBA Cup, so technically 24-10. Like, we're really talking about an 11-game stretch where Josh Hart was hurt and Jalen Brunson was hurt, and Cat was really bumping up against the role that Mike Brown had for him. So, like, while I agree, the lows were very low, the team was largely consistent in what they were as a team, which was a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense for most of the season. Then you get to the Atlanta series, and they're playing the very same Tibbs way of, like, Jalen Brunson, we run the offense through him, we pound the rock, and when you have a defender like Dyson Daniels, it makes it more difficult to do that, right? In Game 4, they went to this Cat as a hub offense and took the ball out of Jalen Brunson's hands. And, like, shout out to our film guys, the DJ Zulo did a film session on this. Like, they found something that the Hawks couldn't stop. Like, they ran the same play over and over again in that second half and scored on it almost every time. Then they did it in Game 5 and won by 30. Then they did it in Game 6 and had a 60-point lead at one point. And suddenly, anytime you do go to Jalen Brunson as an option, or he calls his own number or goes into pick and roll, it's now matched with this Cat style offense, this Cat as a hub offense. And that as a pairing is a very dangerous offense that's not as predictable as the one before. So it makes Jalen Brunson more dangerous. It makes Karl-Anthony Towns more dangerous. It puts the ball in OG Anunoby's hands. It puts it in Mikal Bridges' hands. Everybody gets a chance to eat. Whatever you're on the court, it's not just one person largely with the ball in their hands. And that's really the change, man, is that the buy-in to this new style of offense that takes the ball out of Brunson's hands and makes him a threat off the ball has made them look like one of the best, like, not just one of the best Knicks teams we've ever seen. This is one of the best NBA teams during an NBA playoff run that we've ever seen. So that's the biggest change. And I know that there's like a there's a speculation on a team meeting and the Knicks opponents, and it's like, no, there's very clearly an on-court style of play that changed. And I have to think that the buy-in and getting Cat to buy in and getting Brunson to buy in, like, largely led it to this being the teams that we get to look at now.
Yeah, that them all buying in is, I feel like, what has really changed for them in this historic, winning streak here. And shout out to the chat. We got 221 people in the room. Joe Saturn, this is the hottest Knicks team going into the finals. True Mets Talk saying Mikal Bridges finding more success has made all the difference in the world. And then also saying Game 1 versus Cavs, Mike Brown had just been subbing Hart for Shamet. Super underrated.
I know how underrated it is. It was a thing I was yelling about for 3 quarters. So it was very much the obvious substitution that they should have made sooner, but it was a substitution nonetheless. I think they're going to have to make a similar decision if Josh isn't hitting his threes early in Game 1 against the Spurs.
Well, with the Knicks even being off, it was like, oh man, they're going to be healthy. We're going to go into this series, all these days off, and then the news comes out about Mitchell Robinson. With that injury to his pinky, he'll be wearing the cast on his arm to try to play for Game 1. Does if Mitchell doesn't play, or this injury gets a little bit worse, he's got to come out. Do you still feel comfortable with the Knicks winning the championship with him out of this series?
I mean, I feel less comfortable. That's for sure. He was instrumental in the NBA Cup. in the game they won at the Garden, he was pretty important too. Look, I don't think there's a Wemby stopper that exists. I think we've done a good job over at Knicks Film School. I think I mentioned this with Rich also earlier. Like, there's no stopping Wemby, and I think you could slow him down. Like, I think OG Anunoby can slow him down. I think Mitchell Robinson and Cat, you could slow him down, but you're gonna have to guard him with your team. And like, I don't know if this was just like he kind of stopped himself at times during the Thunder series. Like, this is the most basketball he's ever played in his career. And you talk about differences in celebrations. Look at how the Spurs celebrated beating the Thunder and slaying their Goliath. And now they have to like get it back up again for a team that's been waiting for an opponent for 8 days and is largely just focused on this series. Like, Wemby had 3 games where he just like wasn't the supernatural version of himself in the conference finals. And now he's going up against a team that doesn't like Mitchell Robinson. His injury is important for sure, especially like the rebounding advantage that you're going to want to have for a team that's like got Wemby. And if you pull him away from the basket, not many other options that are better than what the Knicks have on the glass. But yeah, my confidence in the Knicks winning this series is just that they have so many ways to beat you on offense and so many counters to what the Spurs want to do on both ends of the floor, that even if your backup center is playing with one good hand, it still should mean like that you have a good chance to control the series. And that's really what I'm focused on. So the Knicks are going to be able to control the series. They've largely decided every game of the postseason that they've played
very early.
Far, very early. Like, it's really just the first half of the Cavs game that they didn't like. They missed shots, but the Cavs largely dictated terms. Other than that, like, they controlled just about every minute of the Philly series. Even the 2 games they lost against the Hawks, I largely thought when the Hawks were winning or had good stretches, it's because the Knicks had bad stretches. And it's like, oh no, the Knicks lost those 2 1-point games. I'm curious to see if they can do the same thing in this series. Are they going to be able to be in control, or are this going to be the first real pushback that they have in the postseason? And I think they're up to the challenge.
Who else needs to step up, or who else could you consider to be the X factor outside of Jalen Brunson? For me, I think Cat is going to have a big series. I think this is going to be a big one for Karl Anthony Towns.
So I'll go a different direction and say Mikal Bridges. If you remember Christmas Day 2 years ago, had a career high 41 points against the San Antonio Spurs, largely feasting in the mid range. And then like he got benched in the NBA Cup, but then had a really good performance in that matinee against the Spurs that the Knicks won in March, end of February, early March. I forget when it was. His shot making right now just feels so important, and that's really what did the Thunder in, is that they got 4 games into that series, and with no Jay Will and no AJ Mitchell and Chet basically turning into a pumpkin, it was just one offensive creator that they had in SGA, and they were struggling to get to 85, 90 points. So if you're telling me the Knicks, this player that, I mean, he became automatic during the Cavs series. He just wasn't missing shots anymore. If that version of Mikal Bridges shows up in the finals, and you can count on like 17 to 21 points from him there, and then he's like, what he's done a really good job of is taking a chess piece off the board on the defensive side. So, okay, I took Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and he's not as effective. I'm going to take Tyrese Maxey and make him not as effective. I'm going to take James Harden and make him not as effective. If you do that with De'Aaron Fox or with Steph Castle, then he on both sides of the ball, I think he's got a huge responsibility, and how he performs will largely play a role in what happens in this series.
Where does Jalen Brunson rank in Knicks history if they pull this off and win the title? And maybe, also in New York sports, I got to think that he is the number 1 right now, top player in New York sports. I mean, you could throw Aaron Judge in there, but Aaron Judge doesn't have the success that Jalen Brunson has day in, day out in the playoffs.
It's him or Judge right now. And if he wins a title, he's ahead of Judge, for sure. In Knicks history, we've we spent all last summer at Knicks Film School ranking the top 25 Knicks of the past 25 seasons. That was for 2025. We've already talked about how we're going to re-rank this. Brunson was number 1 at the end of last year. So like he's already got that spot for this century over like Carmelo and Amari and Randall and the obvious like second place finishes. All time he wins a title, he's number 3. And it's like it's him, it's Reed, and it's Clyde. And he wins another or just like makes this team a contender for 4 to 5 more years. It's going to be a conversation about him as the greatest Knick ever, especially in the era that he's doing it in, the different records he's going to break in Knicks history and the leaderboards he's going to end up topping. It's funny. The trophy ceremony, the conference finals MVP being Clyde and Ewing, passing the trophy to Brunson,
passing the torch.
It literally was a passing of the torch. And I think every Knicks fan of a certain age got a little emotional, and you mentioned Ewing's interview after game 6 in 99, rewatching LJ's 4-point play and seeing how Ewing celebrated in his all black suit. And he's got his arms raised, that iconic shot that we've always seen him as. And then you watch game 3, Knicks Cavs, and you see Ewing in attendance. And like there's a version of Patrick Ewing's post-career where he's just like a failed superstar that didn't win a championship. And there's just a laundry list of guys that had Hall of Fame careers, have nothing to be ashamed of, but they played at the same time as Michael Jordan. So they didn't get to ever call themselves a champion. Charles Barkley is in there. Reggie Miller is in there. Obviously our very own Patrick, Stockton and Malone. Drexler had to go do it as like a third option with Hakeem. And then David Robinson needed his team to tank for a year and draft Tim Duncan. Like everybody else, it was just like, all right, unfortunately I ran into Michael Jordan and I didn't get a championship. Seeing Ewing now be part of the fold, it feels like the Knicks are doing this for him and for all of the ghosts of the 90s that were awesome to experience, but never got us to the mountaintop where you plant your flag. So yeah, this is, I know your question was about like the Mount Rushmore and all time rankings, but I feel like if Brunson and the Knicks win this, it's not just for this current roster. It's for everybody on that list that we're talking about that didn't ever get to call themselves a champion.
All right, Andrew, before we wrap up here, prediction. I said Knicks in 6. What do you got?
I'm leaning Knicks in 6 too. I want to save my official prediction for Knicks Film School. I will say that.
Absolutely.
I'm leaning Knicks in 6. I will say there is so here's what I mapped out with Rich tonight. So if they win in 6, it'll be at the Garden. New York City won't be standing afterwards. If they win in 7, game 7's on a Friday night. New York City won't be standing afterwards. If they win in 5, game 5 is on a Saturday night. New York City won't be standing afterwards. And if they win in 4 and they win the finals on a 15-game winning streak, New York City won't be standing afterwards. There's no solution or situation where the Knicks win the finals and the city is still standing afterwards. So I think the Knicks are going to, I'm at the point, I think they're going to win the championship. I'm confident in believing that is a more likely than not, to borrow a phrase from the NFL, outcome of this series. I'm guarding myself. The Spurs are very good, but yeah, I'm very much preparing myself for the Knicks winning 4 of the next 7 games and getting to witness something that a lot of us thought we'd never witness. So yeah, I think the Knicks are going to win the championship. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition, but I'm entering this finals very confident at the moment.
I'm right there with you. Shout out to everyone in the chat. We had 231 in the room here. And thank you, Maureen, for the $10 super chat. Really appreciate it. Here's to cautious optimism. Enjoy the rookies, and let's go Knicks. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me on Subway to Shea this week. Let everyone know where they can get you social media-wise. Obviously, I'm going to put everything in the description of this show so that everyone can find you and subscribe as well. But just give a shout out.
So find me on all socials at Andrew J. Claudio _. You could find Mets Therapy. After every Mets game, I do a short for social media, just recapping the night of the game that the Mets just had, at Mets Therapy AC. Rich and I do a Mets podcast called Just Mets, which has a Substack. So sign up for the daily Substack. It's free. Just look for Substack and look for Just Mets. We also do a pod, like I said, that drops every Sunday night, and then a midweek show that drops during the week. And if you are a Knicks fan, check out Knicks Film School. We'll have wall-to-wall coverage of, I can't believe I'm saying this, the NBA Finals all throughout the month of June.
Post-game, pre-game, play-by-play.
Yeah, we've got it all. We've got it all. Yes, we've got coverage going on literally as we're potting right now. A Knicks Film School show, a preview of the series is currently happening. So, Anthony, it's always good to talk to you. Let's go Mets, and of course, let's go Knicks.
Absolutely, I got to get you on the show more. We're not doing this if the Mets make the playoffs. Like, I got to get you on more often to be a part of Subway Shea. That was such a long wait. I can't believe we let it go that far.
Listen, there's not going to be baseball next year, so get me on either as soon as you can or anytime you want next year. So we'll
appreciate you, man, so much. You can follow me on X, Instagram, TikTok at Subway to Shea. Follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86 and subscribe to the podcast. It'll be up later tonight on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But you want to be a part of the chat and conversation, you're doing that right here on YouTube, and you can support the Subway to Shea podcast with super chat, super stickers, and super thanks. For Anthony Rivera, for Andrew Claudio, it's always let's go Mets, but also let's go Knicks.